think this is one of the first all mixed up episodes, Chad, that we recorded the pre-roll right after we recorded the
show. let's not make this a habit. It's almost too efficient. It's too professional. I don't know if that's our style.
We just had an awesome talk. We were gonna split up the all mixed up into two different segments, and we were like, nope, we're gonna run this one as its own segment. Ernest was an awesome guest, and I really enjoyed talking to him about his dogs.
I would say probably one of the most honest guys I've heard talk about his dogs before.
Which I hugely value now.
Yeah, like always. Well, what are your dog's weaknesses? Oh, they're not. Sometimes they're. If you don't want a dog that's the best, my dogs aren't for you because they're the best. Like shut up, But like Ernest was real, like this
Super
is what
real.
they're good at. This is what they're, this is some of their weaknesses, like just that was refreshing,
It was. That's a great way to put it. That was refreshing. And I also just love, so everybody, this month's episode of All Mixed Up is going to be about Afghan hounds, about sight hounds. So my sight hound hunters, we all know that this is a breed that's definitely out on the fringe of the commonplace of a hare coursing dog in America. And I had met Ernest out in the field. He's a cool guy. I knew I wanted to have him on the show. And he is doing his best to breed great Afghan hounds for coursing hares. And I just wanted to pick his brain. He's got a lot of experience, and indeed, it was a brain to pick.
Yeah.
It was interesting to hear his perspective, and I also love, he started in Panama, and the young mind. I love how he was just like, you know what, we're going to try to just catch anything with them. And let's just see what they can do. And they made do with what they had. And I really thought that was awesome. It's kind of how I started. So it's
fast dog, right? Capybaras, go for it, man. It's a Rottweiler with beaver teeth, man. That's right. That swims in the water like a hippo.
It's like a hippo rat.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Gosh. Yeah. So I just, I'm still processing it all. There was just so much good stuff in there. And it's interesting how, and this is just a give some food for thought as you're about to roll into the episode, you guys. These are very, very primitive dogs, not the Afghan hound. I mean, sight hounds in general, even the more refined ones. They're still hunting, living, and acting in a way that's very old, very primitive. And this dog, especially these country of origin dogs, they're very, very old school. And so just have a listen to how Ernest talks about these dogs and how this form to function has served our ancestors for millennia and how we're bringing it into the modern world. I think that's an interesting... Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and it is a popular thing in the sighthound community.
Yeah. It's something like when he went into the. Well, I don't want to give it away. We'll go.
That's a good pre-roll, right? We want to talk about it. So I say this: let's just roll right into it, and we'll talk about it after the listeners have listened to it. Let's do it.
Yep. Here we go.
I want to know when that turning point in my life was that I started drinking seltzer water. I used to think they were so disgusting. And then one day I drank a LaCroix, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. And it was good. And now I drink them all the time. And what happened? What happened?
Did you have anything did you drink any battery acid and just kill your taste buds entirely?
I think I started to see my longhas growing, and I was like, I need to switch away from soda and increase my sparkling water intake.
Yeah.
So, we got a great guest, you guys, today. As you guys know, I had done some of my first NAFCA events this spring, or I'm sorry, I guess spring and winter, this coursing season with my two Salukis, Strider and Comet. And while I was out there, I met a great cast of characters and met some really good people. One of them is here with us today. Ernest, if you want to introduce yourself, brother, tell us a little about yourself and what you like to do with dogs.
Well, my name is Ernest Abresch, and I was born in Panama to a military family. And might as well tell you how it started. So while I was there, I got to meet Michael O'Neill. His father was a colonel in the Air Force then. And he happened to have an Afghan that his brother brought over from Florida. He was kicked out of Florida for dubious things, but he brought this Afghan down, and so I happened to have gotten a puppy Great Dane, and he had this German Shepherd that he had brought from Germany, and we had this Afghan. So we had this idea that we were going to go up into this mountain. It's a small mountain. It was called Sosa Hill, and we were going to hunt the great capybaras. And so we figured, yeah. So, we figured, well, the Afghan named Mishpa would chase it down. Saber, being the intelligent one, would, hedge it. And my puppy Great Dane, we don't know what she was going to do. So we went out into the mountains and we were looking for them. And we saw a couple of them and we chased them and nothing happened. We didn't catch anything. But I was kind of mesmerized by this dog, because I'd never seen an Afghan before. So, graduated from school, joined the Army. Then I happened to get hurt and I was sent to Walter Reed Hospital. And it just happens that Michael was living near Walter Reed and he had Afghans. So he introduced me to this great breeder named Wally Paday. And I said, maybe I should get an Afghan. So I went to meet this guy. He was a no-nonsense type of guy. Saw his dogs and they were amazing. If you know anything about, well, the old kennel he had, Scheherazade, was well known. Really nice dogs. And he invited me to dinner because he was sizing me up. And he said, an Afghan would kind of be a good thing to have for you to recuperate in Panama. Because I didn't mention it, but I got hurt in the Army and I was in the hospital for almost a year. So I got to Panama and my Afghan came. His name was Fleetwood.
That's a good name, actually.
Yeah. And, I went to a couple of shows, but I never was really prepared because I was doing different things with them. But I took him out different places. He was an interesting boy, too. Junior Quiet. So one of the Afghans. So he would jump this little fence I had, and he would be taken off down this railroad track. He always went the same way. And my friends, so when you live in the Canal Zone, everybody knows everybody. And somebody would always be bringing him back, generally the police. He goes, Ernie, Fleetwood was going down the railroad track with a pack of dogs after him. So that was Fleetwood. And Fleetwood passed away. But before, I realized how much I love this dog. So I know this is not very nice, but I was dating this girl and I took her to the mountains and we rented this cabin. And he was, I think Fleetwood was like on 10 months old. And he fell in this raging creek. And my girlfriend at that time, she jumped in and got him out, and she was coming out. They were shivering. Water was really cold. So I got a bunch of towels. And who do I start cleaning first and drying them out? Not the girl.
Hey, how old were you when you guys started to try to capybara hunt? And I just want to let everyone know a capybara is the world's largest rodent, and a full-grown one can weigh up to 100 pounds. I mean, this is a big animal. How old were you?
Maybe I was a junior in high school, so maybe 17 or 18. I think about it. No, I was 17 years old, I believe. So
that does sound like something high schoolers would come up with. Hey guys, I got these 3 dogs. I got a German Shepherd, a Great Dane, and an Afghan. Let's go try to catch giant water rats.
Yeah.
So did they ever make contact with the capybara or no?
Oh, so we were in the jungle, so if you don't know the rainforest of Panama, how it could be. And we just hear crashing and, dogs barking and yelling, and you really can't see anything, but we know they didn't catch anything because they came back and they were not bloodied or anything. But, I think for us at that time, I don't know if we had expectations of catching anything.
Yeah, it was just awesome.
Yeah, it was, it's like, yeah, that's what we do. And it was the chase, and hearing the noise and everything. But so when I moved back I moved back, and it's really funny because Michael, he was always at a place where I would miss him. I moved to Colorado, and he had just left Colorado. So I get to California, and I move into Santa Barbara. I had surfer friends of mine, and I went there, and I call his mom, and he goes, "Oh yeah, he lives up in the Encanto Hill." So I call him, true to form, we don't pay our phone bills. So I went up there. I hiked up about 2 miles, and he had Afghans, and he had these Afghans that he had gotten from Colonel Paday years ago, and Michael had done all kinds of things with the Afghans. So I got an Afghan from Wally Paday. We got an Afghan, and so I tried showing, but the universe intervened because I was too poor to afford the entry fees, and I wasn't going to mess around with shampoo products.
What are you talking about, Ernest? You're beautiful. I can tell you use Head and Shoulders, bro.
Yeah, well, we had gone to this show. I remember we went to this show in Santa Maria, and we had camped out in Morro Bay, and I remember that everybody was complaining and saying, "The dogs are scratching. They got fleas or something." Well, I think it was us that brought fleas to the dogs. But we go in the ring, and we go into this ring with one of the Afghans, and we were getting ready to leave, and these ladies said, "Where are you guys going? You won this class." So we don't know what the heck we won. But we go in and we won. We got a point. I don't know what that means at that time. But just before we leave, these gals say, "Can we talk to you about pin brushes and shampoos?" And what we had been doing is we had been in the mountains. We ran for everything. We would go to riverbeds. We would go everywhere chasing things, And in the process, I think I might have mentioned to you that we jumped a herd of pigs, wild pigs.
Oh, dang.
There you go.
Yeah, we did.
Where was this?
This was in Lake Cachuma area.
Oh, dang.
In Los Padres, around the Santa Barbara area, And they were game. The problem was, but they were smart too. I remember they attacked this big one. It was like a 400-pounder. It was big because it had hooks and everything on it. And this pig just flung them like it was nothing, but they were smart. And so they started going after the piglets.
Oh, yeah. Good eating anyway.
Yeah. But, we realized at that time that they were not the dogs to hunt pigs with.
Yeah.
As it turns out, Michael, you haven't met Michael, but maybe you did. Michael, maybe that inspired him, but later on in his life, he got catahoulas. He went to Louisiana and he got plots, and he was working for the National Conservancy, and he was hunting pigs in Catalina,
Oh, wow. Yeah. That Catalina pig hunting is pretty famous, actually.
Mm-hmm. He went there, and I think if you went there and you saw some of the catahoulas, those were the catahoulas that he left, because I remember the National Conservancy gave him a ton of money, and he went to Louisiana and brought these dogs back. And so I think he left the dogs after he left working there for a while. But, you know, we came to the realization that, yeah, you know, these Afghans, although they were in the head, they're pretty ferocious. I mean, they're pretty tough, but that depends on the lines, of course, that you get. But we realized that it was much too dangerous. These guys, they don't have the firepower. They're quick, but I didn't want to do it anymore because I loved my dogs. You know,
a pig is not a hare. Yeah, you know,
it's not. It really isn't. You know, so
or I guess a hare is not a pig. I guess is how I should have worded that.
Yeah, and without having like I'm sure you didn't have options for like cut gear at the time and vests and the like, because I'm sure they could catch them and probably put teeth on too. They may not be the breed to hang, you know, from a large animal and try and control the head. But without cut gear and only like, you know, how many did you have? Only one Afghan at the time?
Oh no. Well, at that time we had a pack. I think we had like 4. Or in a token greyhound.
Yeah. They find their way in, right?
Greyhound.
Token greyhound. There's always a token greyhound in there somewhere, you know. And you know,
that's great. I love that.
And then we would, you know, we would go all over the place. We would go to Panamint Valley, you know, we would go to Lancaster and those areas to run the Afghans always with one greyhound. Or greyhound, she never had any help. It was like the Afghans would take left and right turns to try and catch the hare, but they couldn't. And so I get into this point because it's kind of really important. So I always knew that original Afghans were great hunters because the stories that I had read, and eventually after talking with people in Pakistan and Afghanistan, they would tell you that these guys were very swift. And in many cases, as swift as a Saluki. And so we looked for the best Afghans in the country, but we hit like a wall. They could only do so much. I mean, the dogs that we had in those days, through various breedings, we upgraded, but we only got to a certain point. And what you need, of course, to run a hare is you need speed and you need the ability to sustain it. And so now these guys, we would always say, oh yeah, they can run in 3 they have 3 gears, but that was it, you know. And so sometimes they would get lucky if they're running with a faster dog and they hung in there. But I think we recognize that the Afghan in the United States, through its breeding practices and the things that people wanted to use them, which was show, they had bred out a lot of the athletic abilities.
And what year was this?
Oh, it's a good question. I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm thinking in the 90s.
Okay. So when I was a wee boy.
Yeah. And so I remember, so I meet this gal in Chicago, beautiful gal. And I convince her, I don't know how, to move to California with me. And I moved into this place called Merced, which is loaded with rabbits and alfalfa, but we lived in this little dumpy house. I can't believe it. She moved there. And I was running my Afghans there. And I used to go to dog shows a lot because I like dog shows. I like dogs. And I met this weightlifter from Holland. And he was telling me about racing Afghans in Europe. And he wanted to see my Afghans run. And so he came to see him, and he goes, he was impressed that they came back. Other than that,
you're laughing so hard. He's impressed that they came back. Oh,
that's very nice that they come back, but they are slow, you know. And then, you know, further research, the racing Afghans in Europe, they resemble more of the country of origin Afghans because they selected for athletic abilities.
Yeah, like racing greyhounds. And I mean, that's one of the things that's kept the greyhound such a potent hair coursing dog, is the injection of track dogs into lineages of greyhounds.
Mm-hmm. And so he promised us, to keep in touch with us. And eventually we got this dog from him, this female, and we bred it to our stock that we had, our boys that we had. I remember we bred her to 2 different boys. And the differences was night and day, because now we could go into Merced and hunt with people. Now, we weren't beating Salukis or greyhounds or whippets, because in those days, Merced, those dogs they were just great dogs. These guys that are running in Merced on Nafka, on hares, they had been doing this for years.
Merced is like the cradle of a lot of coursing culture in Western America.
Is
that
right?
Yeah.
Of everything too. I used to run into, half and halves, long dogs, you name it. They were always hunting in that area. And so, but these Afghans were capable now of hanging in there, and they caught rabbits. But I got to confess, they caught rabbits up in Northern California where the rabbits were a little slower. But still, they were turning them and working them,
Mm-hmm.
And you were asking about so you were asking me about a funny story too. I remember you asked that, so I got to put that in there. So at that time too, while I was running Afghans, I also ran Borzois. I got attracted to Borzois because my late wife loved Borzois. So we had Borzois. We had this pair, these 2 dudes. I mean, they were amazing dogs. One of them could pick them up on the run. He was an amazing boy. He could run them down, and if he could catch it with 4, he'd catch him within 4 or 5 turns. He'd catch him and pick them up. He just had a great mouth, which is very unusual. Well, everybody thinks that because you have a sight hound, they have great mouths, but they don't. A lot of them are very fast, and they turn, and then they turn, and they can't pick up the hare. Everybody just assume, oh, yeah, they'll catch him. No, not necessarily. But this one guy could catch him. The other one, Victor, he was a little bit slower. He was really bright. So one day we go into this hunting field. We get off of our trucks, and we see this 3-legged stiff rabbit. And they see it. So we walk into the field coursing. We might have gone in about a mile or so. And he's on the line. Rabbit breaks to the left. He goes on it, then he loses, and then he turns to the right. And I'm thinking, what the heck is he doing? And I could see the judge, because he's up real close to us on top of a truck, and he's laughing. And here comes Victor back. He's got the 3-legged rabbit. He remembered what the wicked rabbit was. So, what is so funny, though, after this is like, the judge gives him a kill credit. And I'm saying,
for catching a 3-legged rabbit.
I go, what the heck? And he goes, well, he remembered where this rabbit was. And I go, well, that's not how it works. But he goes, it brings back the same rabbit. That was Victor. Well, he eventually got his rabbit because he got one in the ditch. He dug one out of the ditch. It ran into the ditch, and he dug it out of the hole, and he got his kill credit. But those Borzois, those were the Borzois. Because I had mentioned to you earlier that, I love the Borzois. Very different. But we won't go into details of why they have. I think through some of the breeding practices that they have digress. They're not what they used to be. But anyways.
I wanted to ask you if you had dipped into any country of origin blood with your Afghans, and if you could give a very...
Yes, good question.
Because there's a lot of that country of origin stuff with Salukis,
Yes.
And there's a lot of good blood overseas that can be injected into these dogs. And I also wanted to say that there's some really nice lines of Salukis in America that have European racing blood injected into them as well. I have one at my house, and that sucker can fly. Like he is really fast, and he's built a lot differently. So if you could just explain that country of origin Afghan build and kind of what you think it injects into these American lines.
Well, I think mostly I would say it injects in the European racing lines, because here we have European dogs that are related to country and origin with a little dash of some German dogs called VDOM. So these guys from Europe, these racing dogs, they resemble a lot of the country of origin dogs. But I always felt that the country of origin dogs would even be better, because there are shortcomings on the racing, I felt, on the racing dogs.
Like what?
Well, I didn't like their small feet. And also, coursing, as you well know, it's the ability to sustain form. And these Afghans, these racing Afghans, I mean, I still have the 12-year-old guy that's looking at me across it, who he's killed over a dozen rabbits. Now, he was fast, but you could see it where he would hit the mile marker where he would start losing form. But he'd hang in there with Salukis and different breeds because he knew he could do it. So he caught rabbits. I always tell a lot of this to people that go, yeah, you can have a really athletic dog, but there are some dogs that are even slower, a little slower, but they just seem to hang in there and hang in there. And then when the time comes in, boom, they swoop in for the kill and they don't forgive. And that was this Afghan. He could do that. But I always felt that there were even better Afghans in country of origin. So I made friends from all over the world. I made friends from Pakistan and Afghanistan. So I got to be friends with this guy from Pakistan, who he was well-to-do banker, and he wanted to save the breed. But we got to be good friends. He had brought Afghans into Europe with this lady in Switzerland who called them Kalaktazis. And she refused to be part of the community because they accused her that the dogs were not Afghan. Things don't change, In Europe, it's really bad. Country of origin dogs are frowned upon them. They're not real. They're not the real thing. But that's a different story. So I stayed in contact with him. And one day he said, I have an Afghan for you. And I don't think you've ever seen Cabo, but I got an Afghan from Afghanistan. And he's long back, got good feet, likes to sleep in the couch. So I don't know if he was really a ferocious dog like they claim he was. But we used them. We used them recently, and we got some. I'm telling you, we got some phenomenal dogs. I don't say this. I don't like to say what my dogs are going to be like, because you never know until you see them what they're doing. You can think, that this is what they're going to be like, but until they actually get out there and run, you don't know really what they're going to do. But this is the first time where I'm going to say these dogs, and they're just 5 months old now, but these dogs are already they're just doing things that I have never ever seen Afghans do before. Because so it's hard to explain, but when you see a hunting dog, and you probably know, when you see a hunting dog, there's quick reflexes, eye coordination, there's different things that they're doing that are different than non-hunting dogs. It's like they're aware of their environment. They're
sharper.
Okay, yes, they're sharper, yes. And these guys exhibit all these kind of things. It's like, yeah, we talk about eye coordination and everything and eyesight. Well, I always tell people that said, just because you're a sight hound doesn't mean that you see things.
Yeah, it's true.
To see things better than other sighthounds. There are sighthounds that smell things and see that make no mistake when they're coursing. You know that. There's some dogs that people say, "Oh, he's lucky. It's lucky. It's lucky," and I go, "No, they don't. It's not luck. It's like they're doing things. They're reading rabbits. They see things. They know where to move. They know where to go better than others. I can't explain it.
No, it's true. I think that's brains, and that's something that you really can breed for. But I also think brains comes with a lot, just putting a lot of hares in front of them. The ones that get hunted the most will typically be good dogs if they have the genetics to be a good runner. And I really, really liked what you said earlier. And it's something that kind of resonated with me when I first started doing this from some older experienced coursers like Dean Bohannon. He really drilled this into my head. He said, Seth, not all sighthounds have good mouths. He's like, there's a lot of dogs that will run beside a rabbit, run along with a rabbit. They're just chasing a rabbit because they want to chase a rabbit. He's like, you need to never breed a dog that won't pick a rabbit up. He's like, mouth is important. And so like when you said that too, I was like, yeah, I mean, I think that's a true, honest assessment that just because it's a sighthound, that doesn't mean it wants to gobble up a hare,
Yes. And what I found out about these racing Afghans is that they're very intense. It's interesting. I wrote about this before, that it's ironic that in a country where hunting, well, you cannot hunt in Europe. Maybe you can in Hungary. I think they are starting to open it up for the Hungarian greyhounds, but every other part of Europe, you can't legally hunt anymore. They banned it. So in an area where hunting is not allowed and only racing, they somehow managed to preserve those hunting qualities, because all these racing dogs that we have, that we, eventually we started breeding from the two that we brought over from Europe, they're all intense. They're intense, and they'll run and run and run, and they run to kill. It's like, how intense are they? It's like I just had an incident recently where a bull snake got into my property, and they were trying to kill the darn thing. That's why I'm going to snake aversion classes.
You're lucky it wasn't a rattler. You had a different story. I was
lucky because it's not a rattler, because, a rattler will not give you second chances. You can't bluff with them. They're just going to boop, so I managed to get them away because I enticed them with meat. So they came into the house. Of meat. Yeah. And I brought them into the
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, brother. I totally
into the
cut
house,
you off.
and I relocated the bull snake. But I mean, this is the kind of thing they do. They'll go and chase after anything, and that's that intense quality that somehow racing preserved.
Well, it's that gameness, to chase a lure with everything you've got.
Prey drive or gameness or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a greyhound, because greyhounds were bred for chasing. They're supreme chasers, but at the same time, that you got to be careful with them because they'll run themselves into the ground.
Absolutely. I mean, that is what I was going to say. It's interesting. It's a double-edged sword with that extreme gameness, because track dogs, greyhounds, hot bloods is what they're called in the coursing community. Everyone is that. A hot blood will literally run itself to death. I mean, they are so intense. And it's interesting that you say about how the racing Afghans have that tiny kind of cat-like foot. I wondered if when you're breeding these track Afghans, they start to convergently evolve, if you will, towards that body form that track greyhounds have, and the weaknesses that track greyhounds have, which is terrible feet, not very good soundness, in exchange for that intensity and speed.
You can have tiny feet when you're running on a manicured track, right?
Exactly.
You don't need
and those tiny feet are good.
Well, I think that's a good point, because perhaps, big feet and big paws, I think, is not what you really want for super speed. If you're running track, that's not what you want. And so maybe the early Afghans they started with, I suspect they were, but then, I think about it because so how the Afghans in Europe got really fast is they brought a couple of Afghans from Afghanistan. Now, the Europeans, a lot of them traveled to Afghanistan, and a lot of them brought Afghans from Afghanistan. They many of them, especially the Dutch, they were always in Afghanistan, so they were bringing back Afghans. But I will have to ask into this because all the racing Afghans in Europe have small speed. However, with the small feet in my Afghans, I've never had toe issues or anything. And I think one of the reasons is and I was thinking this about my Borzoi, because not all Borzois can run in this harsh terrain. And one of the things that I think what I accidentally stumbled upon is that if you train your dogs as little puppies to run in a certain type of terrain, their feet and the tendons and everything adapts to that terrain.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. I mean, to a limit. I feel like even though I've raised my greyhounds in this rocky hill country in southern New Mexico, they can only do so much. I mean, they're still 80% greyhound. So I need to be very careful with their feet. And I'm never. I know you live in the Southwest, and down here it's pretty rugged. Even the prairies that are in southern New Mexico, they're full of cactuses and rocks and holes and stuff. So I was going to ask you, kind of what your current bloodlines are and what you think their strengths and weaknesses are out here on real desert hares and real desert grassland.
Well, it's funny that you asked that because I was talking to some lady that wants to go out hunting, and I was saying New Mexico is the perfect grounds for Afghans because Afghans in many ways, they have just enough speed. They should have endurance, but they're like Jeeps. And so, which makes sense because the terrains in Afghanistan are very similar to the terrains in New Mexico. So you select the specific dogs to run over rough terrain. So, you don't want to run a greyhound, like you said. They're wonderful to see on a jack.
Yeah, they
are. But they break down. I mean, like nothing beats that. But come on, you run in New Mexico, eventually they're just not gonna. That's why you really should have a galgo.
Well, that's why I have Salukis.
or Salukis, because So I always tell everybody, I go, well, the Salukis are the kings of coursing in New Mexico for our breeds. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Of course, for our terrain.
But I'll tell you, so I think I'm going to be going on the line here, but I think that these Afghans that we have bred to our Afghan dog, I was talking to your friend and our friend Shiri earlier, and I go, these guys are going to challenge Salukis, and they're going to challenge good Salukis, because our current Afghans can beat Salukis.
That's why I have you on the show today. Right there.
They could beat good Salukis, not great Salukis. But these puppies that are coming out, I wish I could. I'll send you pictures of them.
Well, we'll run together this fall. I want to see them.
And I said they'll beat good Salukis. But I don't care what you breed with these Afghans. You can't beat great Salukis. Great Salukis are just, oh my God, they're just, I don't know, they're running a mile, they're running 2 miles, and they're just warming up. They're just getting warmed up.
In your country of origin dog, you said his name was Cabo, right?
Kabul, Kabul Khan,
Kabul. I know he's an import, so I mean, I imagine he's like crazy valuable financially, and then to your project there. Have you had a chance to course him, or is you kind of kept him up just in case to get a few litters out of him first?
No, the reason why I didn't do it. So when I got him, look, hunters don't give up their best dogs.
Oh, yeah.
They don't just give you their best dog. So when I got this guy from Afghanistan, I knew he had his little problems. He was a little older, 5 years old. People aren't going to give up their dogs. And so I got what I could get. And it was, and his journey was kind of magical because my friend from Pakistan knew warlords in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went to this tribe and he procured this dog, brought him. He came in a boot of a car because it's literally illegal to get Afghans from Afghanistan. But he got him across the border, got him into Pakistan, and he nursed him and brought him back to life. And it just happens that at that time, the rabies rules came in. So he came from Pakistan, and he made it just in time that the rabies rules came in. And what was kind of also a little bit kind of sad is like shortly after that, his village got overrun by the Taliban. So it was like, man. Yeah. So he made it just in time. He made it kind of just in time. Well, I'll get up and I'll show you a picture of him laying down so you can see him. Hang on. Here.
This is the bonus of video, folks. It will be seen here. This will be on the Patreon page here.
Can you see him?
Oh, yep, I see him.
That's Kabul. He's an Afghan boy.
And
when he lives in the front of my house, and he sleeps in the couch with me. But the Americans do not like him. They do not. My other males do not like him. It's kind of. It's kind of Baraka, stay over there.
When you put hands to him, what are some of the noticeable differences with him and some of your others? Like,
let me put him away. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Get in.
None of us know what it's like to have barking dogs.
They'll never, these guys will never accept them. These guys will never accept him, which is kind of sad, but he's different. I like to say, hey, we're Americans around here. What are you bringing these foreigners around? They're just not accepting him. So you were asking about putting my hands on him?
Yeah, when you put your hands on him, what are some of the noticeable differences? I'm always curious, I'm not even saying this is wrong or this is right or anything, but like this dog that you got from, the country of origin, when you put hands to him and you down his back or his shoulders, his feet, maybe the coarseness of the coat, are there any noticeable differences?
So the thing that one must understand about Afghans from Afghanistan, there's variety. So there are different types, which makes sense because it makes sense because, breeders will breed what is successful in their region. You breed what works. And so different regions have different things. Different people have different tastes. What is different about him is that he's got long back, which is good because long back is and with a great stride. And that's what I noticed about him. No, I didn't run him on a rabbit, but the times that he would run, you could see the easiness that he did everything. Because fast dogs are not fast dogs because they're moving their legs a mile a minute. Fast dogs is because they're covering ground in an efficient way, long strides.
They have great reach, as has been mentioned.
And they make it look easy. You don't see their legs moving really fast, but how do I know this? Well, I had two Afghans. I had the World European Racing Champion. She was the only American dog. I bred her to go to Europe and compete in the World Championship of Racing and win it. It was the only American dog to ever do that.
What an honor.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Well, yeah. I remember they have like before, it was like the Olympics. You went out with your flag, and I was marching with the American flag, and I remember when she was racing, everybody was saying, America, America, USA. They were all rooting for her because it was the first time. And she won. So this was Kepi. And so Kepi was a good rabbit dog too. And then I remember she ran with Junior. that 12-year-old male who could catch a lot of rabbits. And Michael would do most of the slipping, and I would always accuse him of pre-slipping because Junior would always beat her. He would always beat her, and I'm always looking for excuses. No, you can't beat the world championship dog, blah, 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 blah. But he would beat her. And what I finally realized about him was that, well, Junior had that intensity to catch this rabbit. He was a smart dog, but he had a long, efficient stride. And for every stride he would take, and if you add it up, let's say you add 10 strides, it makes a difference when you're running against a dog like, for example, Kepi, because you could see that he would add a body length. Does it make sense what I'm kind of saying?
Yeah. He's got a more efficient movement.
Stride, you would see a body length in front, and it adds up and it adds up, and the next thing you know, he's like 10 body lengths in front of her. And you're saying, how is that working? Well, it's that efficient long stride. And
I got two.
And I think that
I got two Salukis that are very like that. I mean, so I got one from a great person named Carolyn Arrow, and he's a big, powerful, long, well-muscled dog. And my other dog, Strider, that I got from Paul Domsky, he's a compact, small, tight type dog. And man, Comet, when he gets up and moves, he is just, I mean, his back is way more flexible and long, and that sucker covers ground. I mean, he is fast. He's definitely one of the fastest Salukis I've ever seen, and he can freaking boogie. And that's the same thing. When you slow down that footage of him running, you can just see how big and open and powerful his stride is. It's ironic that he's not named Strider. But
is that Orly's? That's Orly's brother, right?
Correct. Yep.
Well, there is a reason why also he's very good too, is because I've seen his mother run, and to my eyes, that is the best Saluki I have seen in modern time.
Wow.
She ran. I saw her running against some of the best Salukis and just beat him. But the thing about this dog, the mother, she came from Europe.
Yeah, she's got a lot of racing blood in her. Yeah.
Yeah, but so that the reason why a lot of these European Salukis are good is because they have a pipeline to Turkey and Iran. Mm-hmm. And so all these dogs most of them, the good ones, are from Iran.
Yeah, which Strider is too, as well. That's where most of his blood comes from as well.
So these guys, I mean, they're, they're freakishly fast.
They are fast. And
they're just amazing dogs. I mean, some of them I think they'll hang in there with a good greyhound. And if you can, as a Saluki, if you can hang in with a good greyhound, Graham, you better grab that rabbit quick, because that Saluki is going to go by you. It does. Keep going.
Pronto hasn't got the memo yet. He's still leading the charge at 6. He's a beast still. But I know what you mean. There are some fast Salukis out there that, I agree that their quality hasn't, at least from what I mean, I am very young in this game, especially with Salukis. So, but with people I respect immensely, people like Karen, people like Paul, that the quality of Salukis, and Steve Downs too. He's talked about how the quality of Salukis in the last 30 years has improved enormously. And so that I'm lucky to be bearing all that fruit, to be biting into that crisp apple of good Salukis.
I don't, sometimes I think, because I've had my chances to get Salukis, and I go, why Afghans, And I think because I think you might have asked this, or somebody asked me this, and I go, why Afghans? Well, I think with Afghans is, maybe it's like you fall in love with somebody, and when you fall in love with somebody, it's not about looks or anything. You just fall in love with them.
Which is a totally fair answer. I really love that kind of honesty in an answer. Also, great job bringing the conversation back, Ernest. But I think that's one thing that, like, I get the coursing community, I have obviously enjoyed being a member of, but people get really weird into their lanes about their type that they run. And they're like, oh, you know, Abesian hounds can't catch a one-footed rabbit, or like, oh, greyhounds are terrible because their feet are the worst. And I'm like, I don't really, we can like it all. You know what I mean? Like, I really enjoy the diversity. And that's really why I wanted to have you on. When people are like, good Afghans, everyone's like, you should have Ernest on. And I really wanted to represent this breed. And I just love how your answer is, I love them. That's why. Like, you just like them. Like, that's a great answer, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, and it makes sense because, you know, we humans are attracted to different things. We like different tastes in food, different this and that. So why doesn't it make sense that we're attracted to different breeds, different things, you know? And I think for me, that's the beauty of it all, because it's not, even among the Afghans, you know, there's variety within the Afghans. And you know that there's variety in those country of origin Salukis. They don't all look the same, you know?
Right.
But there's Salukis, you know, if we want to put a label on them. But that's the beauty of it all, because, you know, I think a lot of it, reasons why I feel this way is because I'm an Army brat. You know, my dad was in the Navy. And so when you're in a military base and you're going to schools there, you see people from all over the world. You know, you see people from everywhere. And so you get used to seeing different types, you know, and you appreciate it, because each one always has a little story to tell.
Yeah.
You know, something to add to the big common spice. And I think that's what it is with sighthounds, you know. They all add to this big common spice.
Let me ask you something. I really want to know, what are your goals moving forward? Because it sounds like you're really pushing to improve them as a serious contender for a hare coursing dog in the desert. What are your goals moving forward with this new litter, and your goals in general with, you know, North American coursing Afghan hounds?
Well, you know, I'm going to remain and help people as much as I can, but I'll be honest with you. So because of, you know, my body starting to break down, you know, I need knee surgery, I need a hip replacement. It's becoming difficult for me to walk out competitively. Now, I can go off free coursing on my own, and I will continue to do that. But I want to see the Afghans get to where I believe that they are possible of, and I want to see other people coursing them. As for me, you know, I'm not saying I'm giving up coursing, but I think with me, I think I might have mentioned this before, so, you know, I don't know if it's appropriate. Well, it is appropriate to talk about it. So with me, the dogs have always been about God. You know, God has given them to me. He has put these guys. That's maybe why do I have Afghans? Because maybe God said, Afghan is your breed. And Afghans have come really easy to me. I've always had great Afghans, and I always had access to them. And I think, wow, I've been very fortunate. But I know in my mind it's because God has said, this is your breed, and I'm going to make it available for you. So as I get a little older and I'm concentrating, you know, as you get older, you start thinking about your immortality, and you have to start thinking about not wasting time. So for me, it's about not wasting time in having a deeper relationship with God. But the dogs help me in that relationship, because the dogs have taught me so much about humility, about responsibilities, devotion, because, you know, one of the things about dogs is, have you noticed that they're very devoted to you, no matter what you look like, no matter what you smell like, they don't care.
True. It's a great
They're
metaphor
very devoted.
for acceptance.
And so, they have taught me that, you know. And so will I continue to be with the Afghans and be competitive? Yes. But the focus has shifted. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. And I think it'll make a lot more sense to me in maybe 20, 30 years after I've been doing it as long as you have. You know what I mean? I'm definitely trying to put myself in your shoes, but it's tough because I've only been doing it 6 years and you've been doing it
It's
for
not,
50.
I don't think it's a question of time. I think it's just a question when the right time hits, And look, people used to say, "Oh, don't you celebrate New Year's Eve anymore? Don't you go out partying?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? I did that in my 20s enough to make up several lifetimes." It's crazy. It's like I come from that other side where, for the grace of God, that I was able to do these kind of things. But I don't know how I could ever. I don't know how I could ever divorce myself of seeing a sight hound on a hare. It's like, it isn't a question about them grabbing it for me, but it's a question about the
race.
chase.
Yep.
It's
that
just,
course is exhilarating.
It's the chase. It just, if you can't like that, I'm thinking, well, okay, this is not for you. But it's like,
I'm with you, brother, 100%. And you're saying it a lot more beautifully than I do, because I'm just like, oh my God. It's so true. There's just something about that. It seems so silly and arbitrary because it's just a dog chasing a hare, but it's majestic. It's beautiful. It's this display of extreme speed and agility and endurance and tenacity, and the desert's just such a beautiful place,
Oh, I tell everybody, they go, "Oh, well, we're thinking about going to coursing in California." I says, "Well, I lived in California for over 30 years, and don't bother." I says, "You need to come out to New Mexico." I go, because I shouldn't say this kind of stuff, but I said, but even if you don't jump a hare, you still have a good time because it's beautiful.
Because New Mexico rules. That's why.
It's like you're walking, I go, yeah, you get a little tired, your bones are aching and everything, but then you look around. You saw me when I was judging that hunt when you came up to me, and it was like, we worked hard for those rabbits, but that was my first time there, and I'm thinking, this is beautiful.
Yeah, it was a tough day. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I know. I know. Let's be honest about it. Yeah, it is beautiful, but you do want it
that sucked.
You do want some action.
We walked 7 hours for 3 hares. It was horrible.
Hours, yeah. So I will continue to do that. I'll go out free coursing. I'll take my dogs. Competitive wise, I don't know. Maybe I'll judge more hunts because I'm beginning to. I appreciate the dogs running, and any chance I can get, I will judge Salukis because, well,
Let me ask you a quick question. This is going to be some bonus material. This is a simple Seth question. Do you enjoy long dogs, or are you a purebred kind of guy?
I enjoy all types of dogs.
Yeah, me too. What if you were to make a long dog with an Afghan, what do you think would be for our deserts here in southern New Mexico? What would you breed to an Afghan?
Wow, good question.
Well, I have seen. So Michael had accidental breeding between Afghans and a world class. Well, wouldn't say world, but it was a well-bred. I believe it was Dutch Bahama, or was it Perceived? One of those. And he had an accidental cross between a Saluki and an Afghan. They were more Greyhound type. I will tell you that.
Oh, so okay. So yeah,
dominated it. They were very good, but their temperament was really squirrely. They were different. But then I've also seen a Greyhound and a Borzoi cross.
How was that?
He had that dog was a killer.
Wow. Dang.
And yeah, it was one puppy. It was born in our house. And that dog, I could see why. I could see the difference of it because he was a slight dog, but he was difficult to deal with because he would go after other dogs too. But he was really intense. So the combination of a Greyhound and a Borzoi can be very, very good.
I was thinking the Greyhound to the Afghan would possibly increase that just speed phenotype. I guess it sounded like to you that, or from what I'd gathered from you from, this chat and others, is that the Afghan was kind of what you would think it needed was a little bit more speed. They had good distance and good hair sense. But yeah, I was wondering, like, crossing it to a more high powered speed dog may increase that line speed, but then you got to obviously weigh in those fragility.
It has been done. So a lot of the Afghans and Pakistan guys are crossing with Greyhounds.
Because isn't like lure racing really popular in Pakistan as well, with like really high powered straight dogs? Yeah.
Yeah, they do like to race. And I was surprised that there are a lot of Greyhounds in Pakistan, and they race for money. So why are they crossing to Afghans, Greyhounds to Afghans? Well, maybe, with them is like a lot of them. So hunters in it. So maintaining breed specifics in Afghanistan and Pakistan is becoming very difficult. The old ways are dying out. So to find, and this is what Gail Goodman told me about Salukis too. He says, you will not find Salukis in Saudi Arabia that are not intermingled without Salukis from all over the world. Those days are gone. To find true COO Salukis is nearly impossible.
Yeah, that's true. Globalization has just changed everything.
That's right. And the Western ways have clipped in. And what are the Western ways? Well, I can ride around in a Jeep. I want to have races. They'll have races of 500-yard races, and bet, with all types of breeds. So the tribal people that used to hunt in the ways of life they're not there anymore. There's no need to go and hunt for your dinner. Now it's a sporting type of thing. Because, Cabo came from a tribal village, but I saw where he was living. He was living in people with Jeeps and trucks. It wasn't, so it's not like
it's not subsistence anymore. And that's a great point. I was kind of making that point. Chad and I were talking about this a while ago, and I've kind of been mulling this over in my head now that, and again, I'm just an infant in the Saluki world. So this is just my superficial kind of view on a man that hunts his dogs a lot, is that I think Greyhounds are a superior running dog, but I really feel that Salukis are a better hunting dog, if that makes sense. They seem to have just a better...
Yes.
They're so much more durable. If I was in the apocalypse, I'd want Salukis, not Greyhounds, because the Salukis can hunt every day in like way harsher conditions, and they are not going to kill themselves chasing an animal. You know what I mean? Which I think the Greyhound is a superior running machine, but I definitely would not want one if times were really tough,
Well, that's a good point that you bring up. So, I was talking with Gail once. You need to meet Gail Goodman if you haven't already, because she wrote this beautiful magnus opus book on Salukis. And she went all over the area looking at different Salukis. But she once told me that there is a difference between a coursing Saluki that NAFCA requires to win than a hunting Saluki. A hunting Saluki, and these are which I consider them Salukis, Tazis, for example. They would have a hard time winning in the coursing environments that we do with points and whatever we're asking for. But in country of origin, and what they do is, because I've hunted with them, they'll run a rabbit and they'll get beat by a fast Saluki. Second day, they'll still get beat. But on the third day, that's when they start coming. They can run one rabbit, two rabbits, three rabbits, and they can possibly go for another fourth. And they'll go on and on and on for days, and then Salukis start breaking down. They start breaking down because the Salukis that we have selected in the United States, I believe personally, are for competition.
Sporting dogs.
And you only need to run really 2 times a day. So that, so if you were to hold a 6-day event, I really believe that a Tazi you know Steve Bodio, right?
Yes, sir.
The dogs that he had, those types of dogs, I call them, what do you call Tazi's? Yeah. Those are the type of dogs that'll run 6 days. And so Gail would tell me, that's a hunting Saluki, because what people would want in country of origin early on, they would want a Saluki that could hunt and kill rabbits and kill rabbits and kill rabbits and kill rabbits and kill rabbits. And day in and day out. And they'll go out 1, 2, 3, 4 days. In Russia, what they do with the Borzois, they go to these, they'll drive 1,000 miles to this one area to hunt. They mainly, most of them come from Moscow. And I was surprised because they'll go for a whole month, of course, running hares. And they don't go 1, 2 hares in a day. They'll hunt for the whole week on and on. Maybe they'll rest. That requires a different type of dog. That requires a dog that's durable. I mean, and I think when you think about it, that's what those long dogs remind me of, being that way. They can go in day in and out. I've seen them where they could go 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, if they don't have a big grueler, of course, grueler will take anything out. So there is a difference between coursing and hunting, because coursing
I'm glad I was on a good idea.
Yeah.
To kind of tie in everything we're saying here, again, I run sight hounds, but I haven't immersed myself in it like Seth, and nowhere close to you by any measure. But
that's not what I heard. I hear you have Salukis.
I do, and I'm very proud of my dogs. And I'm more of a generalist. I don't ever want to come in here and say, hey, this is Chad Reynolds, a sight hound expert. I'm talking with two people that know that venue way more than me. But here's my thoughts on it, because I've heard greater men than me in this venue talk a bunch, and the way I've tried to consolidate it in my head is if someone were to put a metaphorical gun to my head and say, hey, you need to catch the next jackrabbit that gets up, I would probably start looking really hard at the greyhounds, like really, really hard. But if someone were to say, I need you to catch 15 this season, with the same dog, I'm going to stop looking at them immediately and start looking at another dog. And this is where I'm going to shut up and not talk about a breed. But my eyes would be looking at definitely a different dog. And then something that I've been really curious about that I've been trying to kind of pick at and tease and see if you can share this with me is I believe we're kind of leaning. I'm seeing in my short time, I'm kind of seeing that some of these different breeds are going more towards the sight hound. Like right now, results right here, short term, but they burn out, they break down, they fall apart, whereas a subsistent, a hunter that is feeding himself with it, isn't going to need that freaking bottle rocket, that crazy to heck with my feet, break my bones, I'm gonna catch it. And they're more, I imagine if you even mention that to them, you're like, yeah, this one broke down at 6 years. I mean, they probably laugh and be like, why? What do you want that for? Like I need something that can do the same job at year 1 for the bulk of its life. Would you feel that is kind of like how things are going? We're getting away from more of the durability, the soundness, the efficiency, the natural retrieve, and getting more to the I'm going to catch that rabbit right now, and if it destroys my body, it's going to happen, and then they can't do the 2-day, the 3-day, the 4-day hunts.
Well, yeah, I think you're very correct in this, and I think a lot of it is because, well, I can only see it from my eyes, because I don't, but I do know, because I have a few friends that run long dogs, and they want a dog that can run 1, 2, 3, 4, they want a dog that's durable and do that. But since now, I want that out of my Afghans. I want my Afghans to have more durability, and I want them to have the ability to run 1 or 2 or 3 rabbits, and not be broken down. But I think because we run organized hunting, we want, in order to win, we don't need a durable dog anymore. What I tell a lot of people when I judge is that they go, "What kind of dog do you need?" I go, "Well, you need a dog, as far as I can see with my binoculars, and give you points." That's all you need. You don't need to, if it goes past that one, sorry, I'm not going to see anything. I don't know how people see, "Oh, I could see the rabbit doing this and that." I go, "Really?" So and the way Nafka has been going with coursing is, and Seth saw it, is like we're finishing hunts with dogs that maybe ran a little bit longer than another dog, and we finish on prelims. And I'm afraid that we're gearing to a dog where we don't need that sustainability, the ability to run, often, like you had mentioned. Now we need a dog that all he needs to do is run twice in a day. Maybe his course doesn't have to go long, and the judge doesn't see that far, because one of the things about New Mexico is, because of its terrain, you can only see so much.
Mm-hmm. Hooves or wheels? That's what you need. Really, I mean, that's the only way.
That's right. That's what you do. Oh, they're out. Hang on a second. What you do, when I was thinking about it, is like when you're running your wheels on, you're driving your wheels and you're watching the course. I'm thinking about it, and I'm remembering an incident watching my Afghans run a rabbit, and I was following it on the Jeep. I got to see things in their eyes.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Seen.
It's amazing.
Like, I think I saw that in the photos that you took too. You took some photos while you're following them on that, and I'm thinking, you don't see that unless you're right up there,
Yeah, I feel very fortunate. I can't always hunt. What I say mounted, right, on wheels. I can't always hunt that way, but when I have the places that are available to me to use that vehicle, that's where we tend to kind of flock to, because to me, I can analyze those dogs start to finish every single time. And I have a really dense library of data about how my dogs run as individuals late in the chase. And like you said, it's very hard to see what's going on an animal the size of a football 1.5 miles away,
Yeah, I know Sherry and I were talking about that, and that's why Sherry wants to get a drone.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because a lot of places where I have to walk, that's what I want, is a drone. But then I end up driving 3 hours to go to private property to drive my buggy, and I'm like, man, I could just save a lot more money and hunt close to home with a drone.
So I don't know. I know maybe I didn't answer the question that Chad asked correctly, but yeah, I do see the breeds, because we are selecting, we breed for some, we breed for what wins and the task at hand. It's kind of like with the greyhounds in Ireland. Somebody said, "Oh, they're not greyhounds." And I go, "Yeah, they're greyhounds. They selected for park coursing. They don't need a dog that's going to run, with endurance and work and work and work. They just need a dog that has a long run up and turn, because the points add up. That's all they need." Is that a greyhound? Yes, it's a greyhound. They selected for what they needed.
Yeah.
If an Irishman was in New Mexico, he'd breed greyhounds that would run in New Mexico.
Tough feet, better. Yeah. And that's where I think long dogs have really evolved. People like David Heiss, Dean Bohannon, and others in the area. I say those two, they're kind of heroes of mine, but they really are breeding these very tough desert long dogs that I really admire. I want to ask you one last question, Ernest.
Yes, sir.
If there's one final thought that you have about the future of Afghans in North America as a hunting animal, I just kind of wanted to lay that out. We're getting long in the teeth here, and I really wanted to make sure I got the crux of anything you needed to say to the world about what you love about these dogs and where you think they're going to go as a hair coursing dog.
Well, I'm afraid that when Michael and I are gone from this earth, the Afghan as a hunting dog will disappear in the United States, because that's not the emphasis of the Afghan. Lure coursing and these things chasing the lure are it's what people want. And I'm okay with that, because, this is what most people in the United States, they don't want to go hunting. They don't want to go out in the open field and hunting. You could see that because there's not a lot of numbers. Even NAFCA numbers are dwindling.
Oh, you muted yourself there, brother. There you go.
I don't see it being something that's going to last after us, because I've been doing this for over 30 years. And I've tried everything in my power to get people to come out with their Afghans to just even watch. I even told them, I can put you on a road and you can park your RV, bring out your lawn chairs, get your drinks, and I'll run around you, a rabbit around you. And I couldn't get people to come out. There are a few people, less than a handful, that have acquired some of our Afghans. And so this year in New Mexico, there will be some hunts, and there will be a hunt that I'm going to put on in January. I talked to you about it, where I have Afghans coming from all over the country, and we could see as many as 10 to 12 Afghans coming out. Between Michael and I, we have like 7, and then there's this Russian lady moved from Connecticut. She has one of our Afghans. She's going to hunt. There's another lady that has 2 of our Afghans, and they're going to hunt. So
this is something I need to see. Yeah.
We will have Afghans, but when Michael and I are gone, I don't see it existing anymore. And it's kind of a shame, because I understand the shows and I understand what people wanted to do, and that's just the way of the world is. We're always struggling to preserve what was original about what we were and what we are, and with the dogs. And that's always been my goal, is to preserve as much as I can what these guys were in the early days. Now I cannot duplicate it. I mean, I go to a hunt in a nice car. I go to Denny's and I have my last lunch, I'm not a tribal person, but I can do the best I can. And that's why I think New Mexico is perfect, because the terrain and whatever they're doing is the same. And I'll do the best I can, and I'll share it with the best, anybody that wants to, ask questions or be part of it. But I don't see the future of Afghans being very bright. Salukis, yes. Saluki, I think the future is okay, because for various reasons that we don't want to go into. It's a breed that, you can keep its original form versus an Afghan. I don't know if that all made sense.
It did. And I mean, that was very heartfelt, first of all. I mean, I'm over here just kind of sitting here and absorbing everything you're trying to say. And I guess there could be a push. I mean, this is just superficial. I know you think about this all the time, but just maybe a push. And it sounds like you are working on that to make the Afghan a respected, serious contender as a Southwestern hare coursing dog here in America. And I mean, I think that's what would save the breed, is that it's proving that this animal can really run down hares. And so, I mean, and obviously they can, they're a sight hound, but I think, everyone just, so that was a good answer. And I really enjoyed talking about it. And I'm Ernest, it was great. I really enjoyed hearing what you had to say about it. And you've had a very interesting life with these animals, and this won't be the last time we talk. I can't wait to come out to the Afghan hunt. I really want to see this. So we'll keep in contact about that.
Yes, of course. Yeah. you're more welcome. And, we go free coursing, and I know you're not impressed where we course.
I'm just spoiled. I was in the school I was trained and taught by the Heises. And so they put me through the ringer of what is a really good place to run. And so now the problem is my introductory is all, they're like, if it's not a pool table and 10 million miles of grass, go somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, yes, sir.
I would love to go. That's what I'm looking for when I hold this. I'm going to hold on. Last year I canceled it because I didn't see a lot of hares, but this next year I want to do a hunt in January. I talked to you about it, and I want to find a place where everybody can see their dogs running, enjoy it. And I got people from all over the country coming. I got people from.
I got some good places in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And I even have this Afghan fellow who lives in Texas, who hunted in Afghanistan, and he wants to come to it, So I want to document it, write up about it. And it's not going to be a competition so much as
a reveille.
It's going to be a celebration of the Afghans running a hare in New Mexico. But for that, we need the type of field that you're talking about, where everybody can see it and enjoy it.
I got a place in mind. It's about 10,000 acres, and it's perfect.
Oh, excellent. Now we'll keep in touch, and I'm sure I'll see you because I plan to judge some Saluki hunts if they'll ask me again, and so I'll see your guy, and looking forward to the competition against her sister Orly.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I run entirely too many different types of dogs and venues and breeds and types, and I am the poster child from entirely too many hobbies, and I have one-trick ponies that are like considered the best in their field, and I have other dogs that are more versatile, and they're good at a number of different things. And like, for example, in the bite world, in the competition bite dog world, Belgian Malinois are some of the best. And then they have some German Shepherds that can contend, but they have other things they offer. But in this high flying, high performance, really flashy testing scenario, man, the Malinois have got it wrapped up tight just because they fit into a testing system really, really well. So I'm paralleling the coursing environment here. If we're going to put them in this testing environment, like you say, I need something that can catch it while I can still see it in the binoculars, So there might be breeds that fit into this testing scenario really, really well, but that just because another breed may not test out statistically as well, it doesn't perform as well under these very specific parameters under a test. I'm not downing tests either. I love them. They've given us some of the best dogs on the planet, but like you can't test for everything, So with that said, as a guy that appreciates the best dogs that hit the testing situations, as well as the dogs that may not test as well, but has other things to offer that are incredibly valuable, what is something that you love about the Afghans? It doesn't even have to be like their biggest point, the thing that sets them apart but like, what is it, as an expert in the breed, that's seen, the testing scenarios and the dogs that are high performers in the testing scenarios, but you're still interested in the Afghans, like, just can you give me one or two things that just maybe the first thing that comes to your head? What makes you love that breed?
Independence.
Break that down.
They have an independent nature. And I find that challenging because maybe it is because, my girlfriends and my wife, I had to really I had to work hard for them. It didn't come easy. And maybe that's why I like Afghans, because Afghans are very independent. They will not come back until they have had their rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And they know where they're at too. Because I remember this one time we were in this desert with all those big, the type of cactus escapes me, but those really tall cactuses of the Mojave Desert. And so
Saguaros?
I was out coursing.
Or cholla?
What's that?
Saguaros or cholla?
The big tall ones. And so we were out at the Mojave, and I was with Michael and his brother Tim, and they had refurbished this truck, and they put a plywood platform on it. So we're out there running, and I'm out there with my dog Jazz, and I lose him and I can't find him. And so I'm walking and walking and walking, chasing him down. You know, it's getting warm. And I turn around, and those guys are up on the top of the truck drinking beers, laughing. And I hike back and I start yelling at him. And I said, I lost my Afghan, and you guys are just up there having fun. And he goes, oh, Jazz has been back an hour, and he's had his drink, and he ate, and he's under the truck. They know where they're at. They know where they're at. But they're not going to come in until it could be frustrating. But at the same time, I kind of like that independent nature of them. But they're also, you know, you look at them and you think, oh, I call them peludos.
I got a peludo at home too.
Yeah, but they're tough. They're courageous. They're courageous. They're tough. You know, they were dumb enough to go and attack a pig, you know, wild pigs, and man, those guys, you know, it's like they are very courageous, you know, and they do cement friendships with you. But I think I think that's what I like. I like their comical nature. They're fun to be around with. They're challenging. They're always challenging you. You know, I mean, all dogs steal for sure, but you know, these guys are jumping on. They're always observing me to drop my guard because, you know, my dogs live in the house with me. But I like that. I like that mischievous nature. Does that kind of sort of answer some of the things?
Yeah, it does.
On the dog?
It does. I can, you know, you've painted a picture in my mind of the not lonesome in a weak way, but like the calm, silent, stoic type. You know, a dog it's not needy. It's not going to die without your praise. It'll take it because it likes you, but it doesn't need it, you know?
That's perfect that you just said it right. They're not needy.
Yeah. Hey, you painted the picture. I'm just describing it back to you, bud. You know?
Said it right. They're not needy. It's like they could live without you. Well, they need you to feed them. Yeah. They want their comfort. You know, I want to come in, you know, but that's right. They're not a needy dog. And I like that about them, you know, because they're kind of like cats. You know how cats are. It's like they're the epitome of indifference.
Oh,
you know?
I respect the heck out of self-reliance, you know?
That's I actually really like that too in a hound because I got a bunch of them in the house and I don't want them all in my lap all the time. I got 2 snuggle bug hounds and the rest of them just want to lay around like a cat. They just want to be around you and that's it. And I'm good with that. That is great, you know? And so, yeah. I hear you and I agree with you, brother.
Well, I guess this is it. I thank you for the interview. I had some notes and I said, yeah, the heck with the notes. I'll just go along.
You did great, Ernest. This was awesome. This was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me about the Afghans. And I hope that whoever sees this, you know, I'm not expecting, you know, people to go in droves to get Afghans, but I do hope that they realize that they are more than what you see in the show rings. Now, mind you, I love show dogs. You know, I like them, and some of them do retain some of the qualities. But I want people to understand that Afghans in country of origin were rough guys. You know, they had to be tough because you know that's a harsh life, harsh environment.
They're not hanging out on your
everything
couch.
Out there. Yeah. Well, yeah, mine have gotten a little soft, but there's still toughness in them. But you know, that's what the heritage of an Afghan was. You know, I mean, some of them are still tough, but I mean, they live the rough life, and so they have a lot of qualities that require somebody to survive in a rough world.
I'm excited to see them. It'll be my first time ever seeing Afghans run. I love sight hounds, I love hares, and I love learning and meeting new people. Yeah. So it's gonna do all the things I love. So thank you, Ernest. I really appreciate you coming on, brother. And I'm glad we're going to do this again. We have bonus episodes and some other things I'd like to have you on for in the future. So this is not goodbye. This is see you later, sir. So
thank you. And next time, we'll get Michael, because, this has been a partnership between me and my friend Michael, from high school.
Yeah. And it's been a long, fruitful friendship.
You want to get his side, he will deal a little bit more with the genetics and different things. And, so you want to definitely get him on, but yes, I appreciate it, and be well.
Yes, sir. And until then, everybody, hunt them hard and treat them like heroes. How many times do you hound doggers catch yourself thinking about an awesome hunt you had, or retelling this great story with family and friends around the dinner table, and all you have to remember that moment is some terrible cell phone picture, or worse, no picture at all? Well, Houndsman XP is partnered with Rough Cut Company to help solve your problem and make beautiful pieces of art to remember for all time your experiences in the field. Rough Cut Company is an American-owned and American-made business in Wisconsin that specializes in custom, unique photo engravings on hardwood that are framed to any picture you want. They also do customizable antler dog chews and even beautiful, unique antler rings from their own red deer in Wisconsin. Rough Cut Company can do pretty much anything you ask. Their customer service is second to none. Give them a look at roughcutcompany.com, and when you check out, make sure you check out with HXP 10% off to get a discount on your final purchase. Check them out, you guys, and support people that support houndsmen and help keep us in the field and remembering those times forever. So now I want to talk about. Now you can say what you wanted to say.
I keep wanting to say loneliness. That's the wrong word. The
aloofness,
or
like
non-independence. That's the word he used. Independence, and you see that a lot with these really, really primitive breeds that are still kind of, sort of living, the tribal lifestyle, and I've tried to wrap my mind around. Okay, there it is. There's behavior. That's the behavior right there. We can mark it, right? They're like, it's almost like you yell at them and you're like, come here. And they're like, and they take off, right? And they're like, why are they all like, it seems like the more primitive, the more that way they are, the more, and I've been trying to wrap my head around that for a little while. And so this is just theoretical stuff here talking, I probably should have touched bases with you about this one first before bringing it up. But I imagine some of these breeds, what I like to say, they never very well. Like never get into the trash, never go chase that deer, never do, never bite the thing, so like when they do something wrong, you get on their butt one time, like, hey, get out of there. And they're like, gotcha, off the list, but you can't make them do anything very, and I'm saying, pick this rock up and bring it to me. Yeah. You better pack lunch, man. they ain't going to do it, but if you were to say, never stick your nose in this trash can, I think they take to that really, really well, So if they're living in like, I'm going to reach here in this tribal lifestyle where they aren't chained, tethered, or caged, and they're loose, a dog that gets into the food or gets into this or causes problems is going to die. Literally, they're going to kill
by
it.
Human hands or accidentally.
They're going to kill it if it does things wrong. So like, I think this aloofness and the independence might, again, just Chad's little theory here, might be a byproduct of that nevering really well. It's almost like, come here. And they're like, all right, there's aggression. I'm going to get away from this situation. Or, and I find that with my little Saluki pups I got right now. I tell them one time, like, I could hang dog treats out of the lid of my trash can and they won't touch them. You know, like, just because I got on their butt one time. That's all it took, you know? Like, so I don't know. That's just,
I also think that they just don't select for companionship quality. Like, that's just not even anything that's important to a tribal nomad. Like, I want a dog that stays sound and puts dinner on my plate. I don't really care about all this other BS. Like,
well, where do I stay? I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Go sleep under a bush because you're not coming in my tent.
Or, you know, or something, you know?
Yeah. And that's a very broad brush and a hypothesis, but I definitely think that these ancient dogs, they're kind of a portal back in time to how our relationship with dogs has changed. Because, you know, you ask some of these people, I've been fortunate enough to know some great people in the Saluki community that have spent great time in the Middle East or have lots of contacts in the Middle East, of these people that know people like Bedouins and Tuaregs, like these nomadic peoples. And, you know, they don't have rabies vaccines. So you need to be careful with dogs. I mean, they can bite you and you die from rabies. So you don't have them in the tents with you, man. Like, you just don't. They're not clean animals. And so they can not be a clean animal in a more, you know, rural or pastoral setting. So I just think it's interesting how, the temperaments of these more ancient animals, kind of reflects our much older values with dogs. So they're a cool time. That's why I made that meme with the caveman art of the four Salukis catching that Barbary. Cause it's like, yeah, man, that's hunting with sighthounds. I mean, it's this extremely old endeavor, predating even the domestication of horses by millennia. So anyway, I really enjoy, I can't wait to go to that Afghan hunt. Stay tuned, everyone. There's going to be footage, pictures from that. And that's all I got, brother.
Same here. I don't know. I feel like I could geek out on sighthound stuff forever, but like some of the things let's save it for another one. I think this one's good, clean, and wrapped up, man. That was fun.
Stay tuned, everybody, for more All Mixed Up content. This one is airing. I'm in Canada right now as you're listening to this. So we will be showing lots of awesome content on the Patreon page. When I get back, there's going to be tons of videos, tons of pictures from this awesome adventure in Canada. Tukey Lodge, Babine Guide Outfitters, you guys rock. So thank you so much, and stay tuned, everyone. Chad, as always, my brother, thank you for joining me here. And check us out, houndsmanxp.com. You guys, there's all kinds of cool stuff going on the website. We've added all sorts of new stuff to the shop and content to the website to make it even more exciting and beautiful. So thank you, Shane, for making that an awesome place to hang out. And until then, you guys, thank you so much for joining us here at All Mixed Up. And I look forward to seeing you guys next month with more great content.
Later.